Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight is Thanksgiving night and it's November the 23rd. Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity. Happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving and all that today. I've only played one piece. I'm going to play another piece shortly after this next section of the show. There's going to be a switch around in line-up of how we do things tonight. And I'm going to say a piece and then play a piece of music. And hopefully get your attention. We do have intel. There is some fairly heavy-hitting mind ponderings in the op-ed. And we may have time for some questions near the end. So today is Happy Thanksgiving Day for those who celebrate it. But to those who know the real reason of today and don't celebrate it, it's called Unhappy for the Genocide of the Native Americans Day. If you don't understand that, you need to learn some real history. This is not a Thanksgiving Day. This was a genocide day of Native Americans done by mainly British people of the time. Of course, tomorrow is Black Friday, the day when the materialistic synths line up days and hours before to spend money they wouldn't have done normally on the so-called promise of bargains. To me, it's a day to show that we are being ripped off every other day of the year, because if they can sell stuff for that price tomorrow, they can sell it for that price for the rest of the year. Now, today is Thanksgiving Day here in America and is declared a national holiday. And of course, at these times, many of you will have heard the next particular line, particularly by the portal people, the media, and the heavy focus on the military guys being away from home at this time of the year, and how the public should honour their sacrifice for the nation and the United States. Now, many listening to this show would think the last line is all fine and dandy, as they say. Nothing wrong with that, most would say. But let's peel back the layers of propaganda and look and see if that is all okay. The term nation comes from the Latin term natio, which means birth, spelt B-I-R-T-H, but really meaning birth, B-E-R-T-H. So meaning there is no land, only water, hence maritime laws. A nation can mean two things: state or sovereignty, which is a government which controls a specific territory, which may or may not be associated with any particular ethnic group. Bear that in mind. And the second part of a nation is a geographic territory which may or may not have an affiliation with a government or ethnic group. I think we've got the second one, don't you? Now, in other words, they are not connected to the government of the said country. And so by definition, the laws and regulations don't apply to them. And so they create their own, which is why we have 4 constitutions. Now, depending on the meaning of nation used, the term nation-state could be used to distinguish larger states from smaller city-states, or it can be used to distinguish multinational states from those with a single ethnic group. I'm not too sure the previous show I was involved in realised the meaning of nation states. United States. So that's covered the nation. United States means Federal Union Corporation, aka Government Services Group. Not for and by the government, but by a completely separate entity that, because under a nation status again, is not obliged to operate under the rules of the country. Look at the definition of federal government. A system of government as defined in the Constitution, which is based on the separation of powers among three branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. This system, they say, provides a series of checks and balances because each branch is able to limit the power of the others. So it said. Well, now you know who the others are. Not the branches limiting each other, but limiting the people. So the United States is nothing to do with America. It is a private control system that operates not only government services, but rules over banking, military, politicians and judicial systems for their benefit. The United States is a coup on the people. Then, knowing all that, we come to the final term. Soldiers performing great sacrifice for their nation. The question is, what civilized society ignores the implications of that word, sacrifice? I know we all miss impacts of certain words on a daily basis. We all use language and not really understand the meaning behind it. This is the word magic. But knowing what you all know by now, is the term sacrifice now understood in the correct way? Let me put it in succinct terms. Soldiers, as in soul dyers, are sacrificed for the great satisfaction of the ancient bloodletting satanic gods. The same gods over half the planet worship. Since when do we, as humans, sacrifice any one of us for the benefit of others? And what do we get in return for this sacrificing of our people? Zero. That is beneficial anyway. A whole heap of bullshittery versus mind control, dark magic, and other heinous experiments, all for the benefit of the gods. Not anymore. It's time we stood up for our people, our humanity, our soldiers. Not used as pawns in somebody's game. No matter which created border called a country that person is from, which bogus god they worship, which gender, race or sexuality, doesn't matter. Let's take on those who easily sacrifice our sons and daughters in the name of not freedom, but profit, loosh and general mind-effery. It's time for us all to not see pride in our sons and daughters pretending to fight for our freedoms. It's all BS. Time for us all to see that handing out medals for killing people is not a reward or something to be proud of. It is a complete degeneration of what it means to be a human. These are not our inherent traits. These are the mode of those who interfered with this planet and has done for a long time. No country was ever worth fighting for. But what is worth fighting for, and preferably in a non-violent way, is all the people and this planet here and now. They are worth protecting, not destroying. The opening song was called "This War Must End." And it will. It's time for the people of this country and the rest of the world to demand a full return of all their loved ones from all bases and all operations around the world, and bring them home to heal and rebuild their lives. The soldiers have been lied to, tricked and poisoned long enough. Time for them to come home. And a total end of this illusion that we are fighting for freedoms in countries that have never ever attacked on our home soil. It's the illusion game that has been played out for far too long. And it's time we demand all soldiers to return home to their families. And it's also time to disturb our sound of silence. Hi all, and that was Disturbed, the Sound of Silence. The time for silence is over. The cacophony of noise that the alternative media have forced upon the mainstream media is reaching epic proportions. But we need to keep pushing. All those soldiers need to come home. All of them. And that applies in other countries also. Each and every country around the world needs massive amounts of rebuilding, re-educating, health restored. The health of the people, I was listening to a radio show this morning, the health of the people in this country has now reached epidemic proportions, both dental, physical and mental. But no one can afford it, and yet we can afford to go and send our sons and daughters over there for sacrifice. Now people can argue, well, what can we do? Everything. Not tolerate it for one. See it for what it is another. Since when has sacrifice been acceptable? It's not. It never was. Now, many of you who listen to this show are aware of the ritual sacrifice. And we have certain false flag events on certain key days. September the 11th being one of them. May 1st is another. The Trial of Fire, which is late April. All ritual sacrifices of our people. To appease who? It's not helping us, is it? America's been fighting wars for the last 16 years. Has it made our lives here better? Absolutely not. Trump seems to think today that unemployment's gone down. Almost like, I think they must use the same statistics, people, as the stock market. Because it's all bullshit. There might be more people in jobs, but there's less hours and less pay. What use is that? We must shout out loud. If you want to honour the servicemen and women, you need to honour them by calling out your senators, Congress, House, and all those idiots who never go to war, like McCain or Kerry or idiot Bush. Those people don't go to war. None of them. To me, all wars of the future should involve members of the Rothschild family, members of the Rockefeller family, members of the Bush family, and the Clintons. Send them to war. They're the ones who created it for profit. I guarantee wars would end overnight. Because those people basically are a pile of shitbags, let's be honest. Total cowards. And it's time we called them out. Right, let's get into some news. There is, like I said, there is intel, and there's a whole heap of things that make you go on some rather interesting op-ed pieces on how to escape the illusion coming up in the second hour. Right, where are we? Off to Ireland first. Ireland's Prime Minister has told Sky News that Britain is asking for too much in its divorce talks with the European Union. In other words, you have to cough up 110 billion to leave the EU, which Britain can't afford, so that means you have to stay in, which is basically what they're doing. In striking intervention, the Irish Prime Minister, whose name is Leo Varadkar, proper Irish name, that, isn't it? Says the UK wants a divorce and an open relationship the day after, which was a very difficult position to accept. Mr Varadkar was speaking after Prime Minister Theresa May said not enough progress has been made to move the negotiations onto the second phase. That's because Theresa May and a group of clowns are pushing up the compensation package so we can't get out of it. Yes, they might say different in public. The reality is different in private. But for the talks to proceed, European leaders need to be of the view that sufficient progress has been made on 3 divorce issues: the exit bill, citizens' rights, and also the Irish border issue, whether Northern Ireland comes under that or not. And also Southern Ireland, for that matter. Mr Varadkar struck a pessimistic note, telling Sky News that while he had a very good and constructive meeting with Miss May, or Mrs May, at a summit in Sweden. Interesting, there was news in Sweden this week. He went on to say, I can't say in any honesty that it's close, either on the Irish issue or the financial settlement. That will rumble on forever. And you'll just hope that people forget about Brexit and the vote never happened, and history gets rewritten again. This is the way they work. So it's up to the people to press them. Don't let it go. Keep pressing. A rather disturbing report coming out of Afghanistan that US military personnel deployed to Afghanistan were taught that child sexual abuse is a culturally accepted practice in the country, according to a Pentagon report. Not too sure this is not propaganda, but nonetheless, we'll see. Soldiers who reported the issue were told nothing could be done about it, and in some cases the interviewees explained that they or someone whom they knew were told that nothing could be done about child sexual abuse because of Afghanistan's status as a sovereign nation. Yes, again, that's not correct either. That was not a priority for the command, the report says. There's nothing we can do about it. One soldier who was interviewed for the report said his superior officers told him when he complained, and other comments included, it was out of our control and this is Afghanistan, was the response. The direct quote, interviewees explained that they or someone whom they knew were told nothing could be done, and that it was not priority for the command, and it was best that they just ignore the situation. It's actually best that we get out and let the Afghanistan people deal with it. Of course, there's lots of poppies over there. I'm awaiting confirmation as to whether it is correct that there is bombing going on of certain opium dens over there. I may have that for the next show, we'll see. Off to Italy. Controversial Italian doctor Sergio Cannavaro claims he's carried out the world's first successful human head transplant, albeit on a corpse. Perhaps he needs to transplant his own head. Mr. Cannavaro says that the transplant on a live subject is now imminent, maybe 2 weeks. Cannavaro made his extraordinary announcement last Friday at a press conference in the Austrian capital, Vienna. The Italian neurologist said he carried out the posthumous operation in China. No surprise there. Biobots. And that his newly developed techniques for reconnecting the spine, nerves and blood vessels, allowing the head and body to work in tandem, were a success. So the first human transplant on human cadavers has been done, he said, and a full head swap between brain-dead organ donors is the next stage. I think you're a brain-dead doctor to begin with. What use is is another head on somebody else's body, or somebody else's head on another body? People think, well, that'll be good for, and then they think again, good for nothing. Only the transhuman is the gender. That's what it's for. And him saying he's just done it now and achieved it, and they will be working on a live one in future, again, is the illusion. This is past news. Mr. Tony Blair, deliberate mispronunciation, has been back in the news this week, and he started talking about the emergence of China as a global superpower, like it's something new. And he said it's essential for the United States to keep its allies close, and has warned Donald Trump. Likewise, the ex-Labour leader has long been an advocate of the UK-US special relationship, and Blair said Trump's America First policy is not necessarily a bad thing so long as the president does not alienate his global allies. I would take that given what's going to come out in the intel, as a threat. You'll understand that later. Mr. Blair went on and said, in one sense, why wouldn't you put America first? We should put Britain first. I mean, everyone should put their country first, Blair presented David Axelrod. My only plea to President Trump, or whoever is the American president. I'll repeat that again. My only plea to President Trump, or whoever is the American president, is approach things in a way that keeps your allies with you and keeps the Western world united, because we're going to need that as we go through this big geopolitical change. He predicted that China will be the next geopolitical heavyweight, warning that alliances will need to stay strong to cope with the future political shift, says the globalist Tony Blair. Well, that is the threat. Like I said, you'll understand that when we get to the intel. More house cleaning going on. People who say nothing's happening. Here's another one. The Swiss subsidiary of the US bank JP Morgan Chase has been sanctioned by Switzerland's financial regulator FINMA for money laundering. Go figure. Of course, they were thrown out of the Vatican Bank for the same thing back in 2014, was it? Something like that. And also seriously violating supervision laws. Sanctions are reportedly related to breaches of due diligence in connection with money laundering standards. They don't have any. Just money laundering standards. Oh dear. And that literally means that the Wall Street banking giants assisted in money laundering. Go figure. The ruling was actually reported on June the 30th, but the regulator did not make it known, as JP Morgan had been actively trying to prevent the publication. The Federal Administrative Court has since dismissed an appeal by the bank, and it's 2 months since JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, who also slammed Bitcoin, the world's leading cryptocurrency, who labelled it a fraud. Now, according to Dimon, Bitcoin could be useful if you were a drug dealer or a murderer. See, sometimes they tell the truth. It's just not often. Well, maybe JP Morgan are not part of the cryptocurrency. Maybe others with longer strings have got involved in that. Who knows? This is a fairly hideous episode that took place in this country last month. Of course, we've heard of people getting jailed for collecting rainwater, and the public ignored it largely. Some of the alternative media decided to highlight it. But at which point do we stop allowing others to suffer and not complain? Now, these are the words of an Oakland County judge by the unfortunate name of Karen MacDonald. Not the alternative media person, but maybe they're related. Who knows? During the opening minutes of a recent courtroom proceedings, she stated, "I want to make it perfectly clear we're leaving here today. Dad's picking the child up and he's going to be vaccinated regardless of what Mum did or didn't do." Now, the Metro Detroit area woman called Rebecca Bredow, who is the mum, now sits in an Oakland County jail with a criminal record forever attached to her name. Why? Because she wouldn't vaccinate her children. And the 9-year-old son, who she refused to vaccinate because of her beliefs that it's dangerous, was taken off her and is now in temporary custody of the father, who is ordered by the court to bring the child up to date on the boy's vaccination status, which will be up to 8 vaccines, as rapidly as medically necessary, according to the judge. I wonder what would happen if the vaccinated their children in the same manner. Now, the lady in question, Rebecca Bredow, is now out of jail. She was in jail for a week, just long enough for the courts to take the child off her and vaccinate her, or vaccinate him. And I thought we were fighting for our freedoms. Obviously doesn't apply to making your own freedom-based choice on what is right and what is not right for your children. Except, according to them, they own the child, so they do what they like. Needs to be far more outcry from the public over that. Far more outcry. Now, rather strangely, Israel has released declassified documents that relates to the Six-Day War back in 1967, which reveal the government's plans to starve Gaza and its controversial plans of how to deal with the Palestinians. They've all been released this week. The declassified documents were released on the Israeli State Archives last Thursday and includes hundreds of pages of minutes from cabinet meetings between August and December of 1967. Right after the Six-Day War ended the previous June. Now, the Six-Day War was between Israel and its Arab neighbours, ended with Israel capturing East Jerusalem, the West Bank from Jordan, the Gaza Strip, and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, plus the Golan Heights from Syria. Quite a collection. Now, the Prime Minister, Levi Eshkol, at the time said precisely because of the suffocation and imprisonment there, maybe the Arabs will move from the Gaza Strip. These are some of the excerpts I plucked from the documents. Perhaps if we don't give them enough water, they won't have a choice, because the orchards will yellow and wither. In a suggestion that appears to fit the UN definition of genocide, which includes deliberately inflicting on the group's condition of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. This is the Prime Minister, Levi Eshkol. Now, in the recent report, the UN has warned that by 2020, Gaza will be unlivable because of that same genocidal program that they've been running since 1967 on that whole region. And it went on to suggest that the strategy introduced by the Israeli government during the 1960s may come to fruition unless action is taken place. Mr. Eshkol, in another excerpt, says, "We are interested in emptying out Gaza first," and said when his defence minister suggested giving Arabs foreign work permits to entice them to stay away. that was just a small portion. Basically, they wanted to cut off the water, which they did. And they've destroyed the orchard, and they've destroyed the olives, the whole region. And the world sat back. Now, the chief prosecutor of the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, on Monday formally recognised authorisation to investigate the US military and CIA for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Afghanistan. Fatou Bensouda, a Gambian jurist who has been the ICC's chief prosecutor since 2012, confirmed earlier suspicions that the United States would be implicated in the probe. The decision marks the first time the ICC under Bensouda will investigate American forces and also its operatives. In a statement, Mr. Bensouda clarified that alleged war crimes by members of the United States Armed Forces and secret detention facilities in Afghanistan used by the CIA justified the court's investigation. And it's not Mr. Bensouda, it's, apologies for that, it's Miss Bensouda. She named the US Armed Forces and the CIA among a roster of probe targets that also included the Taliban and its affiliated Haqqani network, as well as the Afghan National Security Forces, which have been trained by our military. Where are we? We're doing okay for time. Like the lady I've just described, who was jailed for refusing to vaccinate her son, 50 other people suffered over vaccinations this week who are employees of Essentia Health, an upper Midwest hospital chain. The 50 doctors and nurses didn't go to work on Wednesday, but it wasn't part of an early start to the Thanksgiving holiday for them. They were all fired for refusing to have flu shots. Really. And it's part of a growing trend for hospitals to require flu shots for all workers. The public health experts say it shouldn't be surprising. It's a patient safety issue, said Dr. William Schaffner, nice German name again, an infectious disease expert at Vanderbilt University and a spokesman for the Infectious Disease Society of America. It's so that we do not give flu to our patients. What's in the vaccine? Flu. Are these? It's McFly. Do these people not realise what they're saying? Most people who have the flu jab end up with flu anyway, because their immune systems are shot because of the shite that we're eating. And they know that. Oh, I just hope we get funding soon, where we build our own hospitals and employ the nurses who won't be giving hideous vaccines out, where they won't be charging $300,000 to $700,000 for cancer patients, where we can create our own network platforms that don't require Google or Microsoft with their AI and spying tech. So much things we can be doing, and maybe we might have a breakthrough sooner rather than later. Firing people for not having flu jobs. There's another hideous news item. and how insane the world is. A mother in the United States who was tired of the school not dealing with bullying against her daughter decided to send her daughter to school with a hidden digital recorder to catch the alleged incidents of bullying. Now, of course, a child goes to school and if it's a couple of miles, they may access as many as 50 cameras that are pointed at us. But heaven forbid if we point something back. The mother has been charged by the police and now faces 5 years in jail for secretly recording stuff at school. The lady's name is Sarah Sims, is accused of wrongfully using the device to intercept oral communications. Really? What about all the smartphones? Are they not intercepting our oral communications? What about Facebook? Why aren't they getting 5 years jail? Which will be multiple lifetimes for every offence that they do it. She was also accused of contributing towards the delinquency of a minor. Really? Mrs. Sims said she took action because her daughter's school had not addressed her repeated complaints about bullying. It's a completely insane world. It really is. Here's a doesn't fix it. Money never fixes anything. But again, it's an example of these big corporations not getting their own way like they used to. Terminex will have to pay $9.2 million in criminal fines tied to a company's use of a banned pesticide that nearly killed a Delaware family vacationing in the Caribbean back in March 2015. The company was sentenced Monday, 2 years after the Esmond family fell ill. Federal prosecutors said the Memphis-based Terminex admitted to using a pesticide called methyl bromide in 14 locations, including in the Siren USA condominium resort in St. John's, Virgin Islands, which is where the Esmonds were vacationing. The prosecutors said an entire family suffered horrendous and life-altering injuries, and we will continue to aggressively enforce environmental laws to prevent something like this ever happening again, said Jocelyn Hewlett, the attorney for the District of Virgin Islands. Good on them. Here's a good news story after the insanity of some of that news. And kudos to a young woman as well, 27, by the name of Kate McClure, M-C-K-L-U-R-E, McClure. And she's from New Jersey. And she ran out of gas. And guess who helped her? A homeless man. Now, the homeless man gave her his last $20 so she could get home. And to her credit, Miss McClure who said she didn't have any money to repay him at the time, but returned to the road several times to give him cash, clothes and food. Miss McClure made sure she paid him back. And then she had an idea. that she would start a GoFundMe campaign earlier this month, and dedicated it to the homeless man by the name of Johnny Bobbitt Jr. That GoFundMe raised more than $60,000. For all who contributed to that, thank you. That's a sign of caring. It's also a sign that perhaps we shouldn't base opinions or judgment based on people's statuses. I'll have more on that in the second hour. This is something that has a potential future, and it'll be the final piece of news before we go into the music break. 3.5 million people turned up for a parade in New York today, which contained various floats, but one in particular caught my attention, which was the 1,000 clowns. And 3.5 million people turned up to see it. And the question remains, I wonder how many people would turn up to see 1,000 of the control system clowns walking in shackles down Pennsylvania Avenue. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. His truth is marching on. Kind of my mantra, really. I'd sooner say the truth and be wrong than pretend to be right and live out a lie. And it stood us in good stead in this show, because over time, and it always takes time, this show has been proven to be correct on quite a number of occasions, many of which you now will recognise. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on the internet, which I will cover shortly, but here's the intel as we have it. Some of it's not good, but there's a hammer blow waiting. Now, in the UK, I covered this earlier. Mr. Blair, who issued a veiled threat to Mr. Trump, and also what he said, or whoever is the president over there. Mr. Blair, for those who don't know, was not some ordinary member of the public before becoming Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Mr. Blair worked for MI5 and 6. He was an agent. Now, a guy called, I think it was Tony Shaler, who the media did a propaganda piece on him, saying he was transsexual before it became more popular to do so when they rolled out their programme. He outed them in a book, because he worked on the same desk as Mr. Blair. Now, the MI5 and 6, MI standing for military intelligence, allegedly, mindless idiots to me, have this week fully committed themselves to the Rothschild clan. Those people are humanity sellouts. Period. And you will face the same consequences as the Rothschilds will. TikTok. Now, there is a war going on in Langley, within Langley. We've stated a long time back now, most people are not aware of on the internet, that there was 3 versions of Langley, 3 factions, 1, 2 and 3. And there was a breakaway group from the original Langley, which involved part Nazis, which then became fractured when the Illuminati collapsed, and then another breakaway group when half of the original breakaway group decided that they didn't like the direction the Nazi group and the NATO clans over in Norway wanting to take on Russia, which is the goal all along, decided America comes first. And so there's been a war going on within Langley for the last 2 years. And it's not how it's been reported on the internet. That's 100% BS, period. No Marines, nothing. It's BS. Now, who are the warring factions? Well, it's Faction 3, mainly, and parts of Faction 2, which is the Bush Group, who are puppets for the Rothschilds. And also MI5 and MI6 from the UK. And they're taking on the real Langley people, aka not the clowns. People who have found and seen common sense. They've seen through the fraud, the corruption, the deaths, the financial waste. They've all been shown it. You'd be surprised how many chose to turn their back on it. Well, some people in Langley have decided we're not doing that, and kudos to them. If you're really an American and you're proud about your country, it's time to go and support them people from the foreign invaders. Bush, who are German, real name Scherf, not American, they never were. Germans, paperclip group, and MI5, MI6, foreign agents representing the City of London, not America. People in the Pentagon also. If you don't want to represent the people in America, it's time you step down and go and live in the UK, or go and live in Rome, or go and live in Tel Aviv, because you're not working for the benefit of American people. You never have. So battle lines have now been drawn. There's no coming back for it now, where it's going to get ugly. It has got ugly. It's just not as ugly at this time as certain people on the internet are putting out. You know, it beggars belief to me. You know, I've been told news today that I'd love to put out, but I'm not, because it's not safe to do so. It'll be put out when the time is right. But you've got clowns on the internet who don't have 2 brain cells to rub together, who are only interested in getting likes for their page and how many YouTube listeners they can get. Putting a whole heap of stuff out. Most of it's BS anyway. But imagine if it's not BS. Because they have opened their ego-headed mouths, They could have ruined a whole operation and wiped out a whole lot of people. Just because they're not dropping bombs over our heads doesn't mean we're not in a war. And this is one of the reasons why I was chosen, because I will not out anything unless it's fully approved. I understand the risks. I would sooner go a whole month with no intel rather than out it once and get people killed. I'm not having that on my conscience, and I'm not putting other people in that risk. And it's time other people on the internet, April, June, shut up and realise we're in a serious situation here and personal responsibility is required, not bullshit. Rothschilds, again, tried to file more papers in the UK, and that failed. So they last week tried it again here, and were told to do one. There's far many in this, more now in this country, who realise who and what they are and what they stand for, and what they are. A blight on humanity. It's time they ended it. They also tried, the Rothschilds, tried to kidnap prominent members. That failed also. Oops. Remember I was talking about the super notes, fake bills, a couple of weeks ago. Well, the full report has now come in, and they're all over the world, and it currently stands around 78 billion, and apparently it's climbing. Now, sadly, for some to hear, but it's not a surprise to me, as I've warned over them for long enough now, what appears that our military, the US military, the American one, is involved in all the fake bills operations, as the planes carrying the note are all unmarked and have no tail numbers. This is why the Rothschilds continue to fly when in essence they're in the mud. From all reports, they can fly around America with these notes, but they're not allowed or blocked in coming into America. Now, this may explain the incident cover story in Miami last week. Also involved in this operation is a group formerly known as Blackwater, the mercenary group. These notes are being printed here in America, Taiwan, Ghana, of all places, and Switzerland, no surprise there, and is being distributed in unmarked white vans. So the question is, why and how are they still printing? Well, it was suspected that the Rothschilds stole a whole load of printing paper out of the Bush Ranch last year, coupled with the fact that the two main printers globally are the Fed and a company called De La Rue, which is a government services agency. Another one we don't want on our soil. We can provide our own services, thank you very much. And you will not be surprised to know that both of those companies, the Fed and De La Rue, are owned and controlled by the Rothschilds. So the Rothschilds have no money, so they just print bogus shit. Unfortunately, certain portions of our military are allowing it. Time they stopped. Now, some of the biggest problems in some of the areas globally currently, including here, is the crimes have been shown to and witnessed by alleged authorities, and very few in most cases and none in some cases are being followed up on. So the authorities are being shown the criminal behaviour of certain groups, be it Bush, Rothschild, et al., or the Fed, and basically they're ignoring it for fear of losing their jobs or their heads. Now, this Mexican standoff will roll on forever unless crimes are brought to justice. You have the backing of a large portion of the population. We know what's going on. The sleepers will carry on lining up for Black Friday for the latest gadgets that they're going to be ripped off on, or standing in line for the next iPhone for $1,000. They won't have a clue one way or the other, but we will. And it's time they brought the criminals to justice, no matter who is committing them. The fact that the Fed continues to print, despite their contract expiring five years ago, in fact it may have even been 8 years ago, it's either 5 or 8, one or the other, their contract to print has expired. That to me is unacceptable in this country or any country. And it's time the military, the agencies and the judges got some backbone, methinks. The onslaught against the entity known as Hillary Clinton will continue to its conclusion. That's all I'll say on that. Right, that's the intel for this week. What I can say is the corridors of power are literally like Trump on election night, shitting their pants. They know we're coming. They know we've already arrived. They know the public's hammer is about to reach their table. Whether they've got their fingers on the top of the table or their head won't matter. Their time is short. That I can assure you of. Now, going back to the homeless person story, at the end of the first hour, it kind of teaches us lessons in humility, but also teaches us not to discount anyone based on status. A homeless man gave a woman who was short $20. Some would argue that should be the other way round, but it was an act of kindness. And a lot of people look at homeless with a look of contempt, or completely ignore. But there's good people in all walks of life, no matter what your class, so-called class status, or your financial status, or where you live, whether you live in a rich neighbourhood or not. There's your lesson. What they always say, never judge a book by its cover. Take the time to read it. You might like what you see. Now the same thing applies to people on benefits, whether This is more UK aligned, but it can apply here. Now the argument is that people get benefits in the UK and they get benefits here, and I understand the benefit system more in the UK than here, but the same principles apply. Now in the UK, which is largely a 35-hour week, not the 40 slavery that we have to do in America, people on benefits who go and get jobs are finding they're only £10 to £20, which is $20 to $30 better off, less travel costs. So it means people, and they also lose other things. It might be dinner tickets for the kids or health because they've gone to work. So they lose a whole lot more than they gain by actually working. Now most would automatically say, and I've heard it mentioned too many times, because we don't think properly, most would say that they are cheating the system by staying on the benefits. And I understand that to a degree, but only because you haven't thought about it. But you're actually wrong in thinking that for two reasons, that they're cheating the system. People always say, well, maybe we're paying too much in benefits and need to lower them, so we'll force them back into work. And I've heard that said so many times. But have you ever tried existing on benefits? You're not living. No, the real issue is we have to increase wages, not lower benefits. See how it changes with a little bit of thinking? Now, to support this, there was a guy by the name of Lord Adair Turner, former head of the Low Pay Commission back in the UK. And the UK over the last 10 years, he stated, has created a lot of jobs. But today's real wages are below where they were in 2007. 10 years on. In fact, we're only about 5-6 weeks away from that being 11 years on. And wages are less. Now, in the recent budget report in the UK, it states wages will remain stagnant until at least 2022. So that's 15 years. There's no guarantee it's going to end there. I suspect it will, because we will have changes by then. So what I'm asking is for people to have more understanding towards the homeless people, towards the people on benefits, because benefits is deliberate ploy on we the people, because people on benefits are easier to control. You can't go and buy nice food, you'd end up with their crap, because that's all you can afford. You can't afford proper health care. That now applies to America, not the UK. It's a control system, and we need to start showing more understanding with those people, not denigrating them, that they're cheating the system. No, the system is cheating us. The job I'm doing, to give you an example, the same job, although admittedly the guy did an extra day than me. He worked 6 days a week, I work 5. was earning $650 more a week in 2003 than I do now for doing the same job. And yet Trump tells us unemployment's down and things are better. No, they're not. That's the illusion. And please don't try and pull the wool over our eyes, Mr. Trump, because I'm not buying it. I don't care how good that you're operating is. If you're going to spout shite like that, I'm going to call you out. We may have more people in work, but they're all working 15, 20 hours for poverty wages. That's not proper unemployment. Or proper employment, sorry. That's, let's call it what it is. Slavery. $650 more 14 years ago for an extra day. It's clearly not going in the right way. So let's not say lower benefits. Let's tell them we want increased wages. Part of the problem, and I've said this before, and I've said it in various other subjects, is technology. 30 years ago, we weren't paying $150 thereabouts for cable and internet and the phone. Or we weren't paying $100 for a mobile phone. Some people are paying more for both. But $250 for technology that we didn't have 30 years ago. Where's that money coming from if the wages are lower? What happens is people then make cuts to their lifestyle. Vacations go. So there's your rest time gone. Kids can't have a better Christmas or better birthdays unless you go into the other cycle of control, credit card debt. We have to stop it. Right, let's get into some op-ed pieces. Of course, the internet BS is rampant again. I hate to say it. There was no Marines in Langley. Well, there might have been Marines there, but they certainly weren't arresting or shooting or taking out or taking down anyone in Langley. 100% BS. The indictments are totting up, according to the internet. Well, we'll wait to see the fruition of that. And the JFK files were released, all bringing hope. Except there's no Marines in Langley. Indictments are classed as pending until brought to fruition, and we see who is actually indicted. Everyone's presuming, because it's sexist, it's a certain shrub family. Or because it's from another state, Arkansas, it's the Android family. May not be. I hope it is. But we've seen this hopium stuff before and all being let down again. What I'm asking is to exercise caution. But the Marine stuff in Langley, total BS. And the JFK files to date have not rendered the real guilty parties, have they? So we all got our hopes built up again. And it just reveals a crock of shit. Where's George Bush Sr. in that file? Or are they the ones that have been held back? Which they said they wouldn't do, but clearly they have. And it all smacks of me of diversion and distraction. Then we had the mainstream media chiming in. Sean Hannity He got in on the act last week. TikTok on Monday, he said. Well, Monday came and went. And unless you are interested in more mudslinging of a political nature, then I'm not seeing the fruits the internet has all promised. You know, as much as I would like to see Langley raided and the clowns arrested, all of them, and other things to play out, if it's not the truth, I will say so. You know, we've had far too many hopium stuff over the last 6 years. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, this show will not be adding to it. Period. Now, there is much going on, even in the mainstream media, to see changes are being made. Presidents, prime ministers, politicians, princes, et al., all being ousted. And hopefully they'll be replaced by better versions, with the balls to stand their ground and resist their temptations, because they will throw it at them. Temptations of wealth and titles the cabal love to proffer up. And the better versions, I hope, will continue the work that's already underway and take the fight to them and bring them down to their knees. They're buckling. Maybe that's why they're all wearing funny boots. Things that make you go, this week. The Pope announces Jesus is metaphorical, not literal. Go figure. The question isn't, people don't ask why it's taken until 2017, when you knew the truth long ago. The name Jesus is not possible anyway. I'm not saying there wasn't a being that represented what has been written as Jesus' words. There have been teachers who have come here to help us. But certainly not at the behest of the Vatican Church, who killed one 2,000 years ago, remember? They also killed the one from 1,000 years ago. And Mary Magdalene. Another thing that makes you go, is, do you ever notice that none of the people promoting or involved in the so-called RV bandwagon ever associate themselves with the Rothschilds or the cabal? They're always working for somebody else. No, not us. This is the real deal. Message to all of you. You all are working for the Rothschilds and or the cabal, whether you know it or you don't. Oops. Prince William, another one, things that make you go, although not as pleasant. He announces he likes all his meat rare. He says, in fact, I think I like it quite alive. I won't go further with that. Unpleasant family, that. Another thing that makes you go, Another report right in your face. People think it's future when it's the past. Robot doctors being introduced now. As their technological dream world appears to be gathering pace. Some people thought it was a cool idea. What if they replace all the doctors and nurses with robots? Does anybody thought of that future consequence? Where are all those people going to work? Again, another warning of technology. The entity known as Sophia warned us. I'm here to destroy humanity. Now, how they like to tell you, well, it's not a case of like, they have to tell you under cosmic law what they're doing. She told you. Are we going to sit back and allow it, or are we going to smash them? Another thing that makes you go, far too many in this region, South China Sea and Asia. The US 5th Fleet Navy destroys plane bumper cars again this week. They're really bad steerers of ships, them people. Except there's a lot more going on than people realise. One event maybe, nasty accident. This is about 5, 6. None of the previous damage was consistent with what they were saying either. There's war going on over there. Now, to add to it, yesterday, transport planes off one of the destroyers fell out of the sky. 8 rescued, 3 missing. Mr. Putin has sent reconnaissance planes to check it out. I suggest we all watch that region rather closely. Google rolled out its mirror site LGoog this week, and to me that reveals a little bit more of the word magic. Google. Now, Go is the mirrored version, is Og. Go Og. Now, Go is also, and listen to this closely, Go is an open source programming language which is now mirrored. Now the term at the end is LE. Of course, if you mirror that, it's L, which means God. So the God is the open source programming language which a certain NATO CIA agent on the internet likes to promote. It's the AI. The mirrored version, because the original has gone down. Another reason why we need funding, where we create our own internet platform that has nothing to do with Google and nothing to do with Microsoft. We have enough clever people in the alternative media to do without them. Now, the media bandwagon jumpers are now running amok on people with their sexual habits. Franken, Conyers, Barton, Spacey, Rose, and Mr. Moore is the latest that they've spent 24/7 discussing and highlighting and ripping to shreds. So nothing else is going on. Now I suspect the latter, Mr. Moore, may be more to do with a tax vote than actual correct allegations. Time will tell. Now, given the volume of these allegations, a lot of them will have merits. But I have a cynical side as well, because I know how they work. And the cynical side of me questions a certain amount of these disclosures. We have to be very careful of accepting them as being real. In some cases, not in all. It's going to be difficult to know which one is which, but I suspect some of these allegations are financial oriented. People see the dollar signs and they come up with all kinds. You've heard some of the heinous ways they make money around the world. Organ harvesting, etc., etc., child trafficking. These people will go to any lengths to get money. But the question is, if all these people are being molested in a certain way, why on earth have they waited until now, 2017, to complain about it? You know, the alternative media has been around long enough to create a platform for them to expose the filth. They weren't going to get a show on mainstream media, but they could have come to us, couldn't they? And that's what makes me question the volume. Now, I suspect some of them are using it just to gain popularity. Failed has-beens are not treated too well in the world of film and music. And they're wishing for another stage to perform from, plus the prospect of a big payout in court. Hope I'm wrong. And I don't in any way wish to play down the hideousness of the sexual deviancy, if proven correct, on whoever that may be. But we have to be careful, as the cabal have often used sex allegations to remove certain people they want out of the way, or have no purpose anymore. They've done it since time immemorial. Because the public always reacts to the sexual nature. They see the headline and ignore whether the allegations are correct or not. A classic example is Julian Assange. Now, whether he's 100% for the people, or whether he's COINTELPRO, or whether he's one of them. But those allegations had no merit whatsoever. And it was a way of discrediting him. Because if you throw a sexual allegation at somebody, the public react. Whether those allegations were true or not, the public doesn't want to hear it. That person's been a sexual pervert, so anything he has to say is completely discounted. Same things happened in the alternative media. Remember Bill Brockerbrader, Bill Wood, how he admitted he had done wrong things. But he tried to discredit everything that he said based on his sexual deviancy. The two don't relate to each other, but they're playing on the psyche of the people to make the judgment on the headline without reading the information. Now, other news, this could have been part of the intel, but it is correct. The Department of Justice is now, surprisingly, or maybe not, maybe things are really changing, are going after the gang known as M13, formerly known as the Crips. Now, those clowns have recently been working for the Bush Group. Some of them were, not anymore. So maybe that's a change. Now, this came out of, how are we for time? Came out of a science show I was watching, and they're thinking of how they know the universe, and in particular a black hole. And the statement they made is the main issue is that anything that comes close to a black hole is sucked in by its immense gravitational pull, which is so strong that not even light can escape. That is their understanding of it. The reality is that's rubbish. There is what's known as a singularity. Now, if you get a cone and put the wide end on a table, put a tiny ball on the top of it, and then put another cone with the wide end at the top, that in essence is what a black hole looks like. We only see one side because of the membrane. Now what's on the other side is a white hole. This is where the Big Bang comes in, where a cluster of galaxies or solar systems comes through the black hole, goes through the singularity and out of the other side of the cone, which is the white hole. Big flash of light. Big Bang. They don't know it made a bang, they just saw the remnants of the light. Now, this has many connotations, and you're going to have to listen closely to this, or for those of you who like to listen to the show a number of times over and over, because you generally miss stuff, this will probably be the section. So, the double cone looks like an egg timer. We came in the width part of the cone, in consciousness, and it narrowed. Partially to do with interference, and partially to do with our own stupidity. Now, if we can't observe the white hole, we can only see the black. What if you add two cones either side? So you've got one top and bottom, and now you've got one left and right. Is that not the sign of the cross? Because that's exactly what it is. And in reality, it's our own crossroads in some aspects. The choice. We're rather close in making that choice as a collective. Some won't make it, some won't go on the same path as you. It all depends on your own personal evolution and your own vibratory frequency. But it'll be a soul choice. And so families, in essence, and loved ones and siblings don't come into it. They were there to help you on your journey. The soul choice will determine the right path to make for you. There are no choices that are right, and there are no choices that are wrong either. It all depends on your own level of development and consciousness. Now, everyone's heard of the Russian dolls. And in essence, it's a similar theme, where the dolls are bigger and they get smaller, all inside. Now, that basically represents our rise in consciousness. Consciousness is not expanded outwards. But like the Russian dolls, it goes inward. This is why we say, do your inner work. Everything you need is inside of you. The answers, your consciousness, your improved PSI field, your personal development is all inside. Now, this next part, which I'm hoping I will complete it before we have a music break. This is the key for everyone to break out of this system. There was a movie called The Other Life, and I explained some of it a couple of weeks ago. They were boxers, 3 boxers. I'm going to tell you the real. That was the analogy. The real 3 boxers that you, as an individual, on a soul level, have to break out of and escape this construct. Box 1 is recognizing you have been imprisoned in your own mind. Not the cabal. You. And breaking out of that requires critical and analytical thinking. Not allowing the latest fad, program, or false path to steer you off your course, but determining your own course based on an arising awareness of what is real and what is illusion, what is truth and what is lies, what is important for you and not everyone else. In essence, it can appear to be a selfish task. It's not. It's your soul. It's your development. And yes, we can all help people along the way, which is why I'm covering this. So consciousness has to be focused inward, not projected outward like you're praying. You're just sending your loose energy to those who will gobble it up all day. What they don't want is you going in and raising your vibratory rate. Standing in your own sovereignty. Loving you for who and what you are. Not for what you could be or what you can be, or I haven't got this and I haven't got that, or I'm not well, or I haven't got a job. All that is irrelevant in this stage. It's who and what you are that counts on a soul level. And we've imprisoned ourselves via the mind. This is why meditation is important, because it shuts the mind down. Then you operate from the point of raised consciousness, which is the heart. When you're operating in the right manner, you will not see purple. You will see the golden beam. All that New Age BS, purple and violet flames. No. That's the illusion. You will see the golden beam. You will see it go through your head and through right down the chakras. And despite what some idiots on the internet think, yes, we do need them. removing the chakras for idiots. The golden column then raises your vibratory rate in preparation for other stages. The second box, once you realise that you've imprisoned your own mind by imposing limitations and narrow thinking, little old me, is the programming section made for you by the Cabal or the Elites. Recognise that and break through that barrier. Not, oh, the Cabal's coming for me and this and that. No. What they're doing when you're in soul alignment is irrelevant. It's just background noise. Box 3 is the construct. If you break through 1 and 2, you will see the construct. And you will recognize it. And then you break through that as well. This is all done via meditation or vision night work. It's not as hard as you think, but it will cause you to reflect. I don't like using that word, but to look in on yourself. You may not like what you see, some of you. There'll be little parcels that you don't want to deal with. You can't carry parcels on the next journey. That's where the karma comes in, because you didn't deal with it in the previous lifetime, so you're bound to repeat it in the following one. Is that really what you want to do? Deal with the traumas. Deal with the fallouts. Deal with the shame. Deal with the guilt of whatever you've done or haven't done. Or people have done things to you that you've held on to that make you feel insecure because your brother or sister is more successful than you. So I have to denigrate myself because they appear to be better. No, they're not. That's your illusion. That takes you back to box 1. A prison of your own mind. Because if someone's got a better job than you, what value does that have on a conscious and a soul level? 0. It's part of the illusion. Deal with your shadow sides. Do your inner work and break through those 3 boxes. Now once those 3 are completed and you're standing and can see with your eyes closed the golden light, the first one being the most important one, your own box of limitation, little me, narrow thinking. What happens next is you're then faced with, we go back to the vortex again, the two cones. The singularity choice. The singularity is a membrane. Of course, in the other life, the woman broke out of 3 boxes, her own mind. She played into the illusion, thinking she was there a whole year, when in reality she was only there a minute. She then broke through a box, and then broke through another box, and then there was a plastic membrane. This is the same. The singularity of the vortex is the membrane. You're then on the other side of the construct. Now, breaking through the membrane will be a key juncture for all of you that listen to this show. You must be prepared to do it and ready to make that leap. As the breakthrough, the membrane then creates the contact with your whole self. With the possibility of you heading home, wherever that may be, only a possibility, or you could end up going back in and helping others to escape, or hold the gateway open to make available for others to come through. The way shows. Now, this stage will be fraught with dangers, as you can become trapped outside the membrane, and you may want to go or need to go back for others, or you've got scared. Facing the unknown, facing change, many people run away from it. And this is why nothing has changed too much except our lifestyles and our freedom, real freedom. But you have to be clever in this zone, the singularity, because it can lead to sleep death if trapped in the void. Don't delay. Now, the black hole pulls in singularity, which is 0 point, and this then goes out into the white hole. That means you're then out of the system altogether. Now, when the torus itself, which is the cones, is in balance and the energy is flowing, we are in a perfect state to clear ourselves of anything that is not the self. Anything that prevents us from being our authentic selves. Now, science tells you singularity is where the law of physics no longer applies. Yes, because we're outside of the illusion. The law of physics in here is illusion. The singularity is a choice section, where everything is and yet nothing exists. I know you're going to have to think about that. It's an empty void or an empty slate to then go on and create your new path. You're not just going to open a door and be greeted by a load of ETs saying, oh, come to our planet. You are a creator being for nothing. You then have to create your new path outside of the construct, outside of the singularity. Now, this 0 point energy point, singularity, occurs at the junction of the white and black hole. And it's also known as the vertex. The 0 point, which is the singularity, energizes and enlivens living organisms Think about that. Do you think the organics can go there? No. I'll repeat that again. The 0 point energy, which is the singularity, energizes and enlivens living organisms, as in organic beings, not inorganic. It also neutralizes harmful frequencies and increases spiritual awareness, a sense of oneness, and is in our higher consciousness. Now, this ostensibly is a void of nothingness, and yet it contains the full potential to create. A point of choice. But what if you reach the singularity or the 0 point energy in your evolutionary development in this body? What if the planet reaches it also? Now, the reason I say what if is this. What if the singularity is source? A void in space where your soul has the chance to recharge. It enlivens living organisms, neutralizes harmful frequencies, and increases spiritual awareness. But you can only increase spiritual awareness if you've got some, which is why you've got to be at the higher vibratory rate to break through the membrane. So it's a void in space where your soul has a chance to recharge. Isn't that the same terminology we use for going to source? A chance to recharge, assess your own development, and not some fake God sitting on a cloud or at pearly gates deciding your path for you. No. You've got the 4 openings of the cross. Could that be the 4 elements? The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which means the revealing? Or the 4 winds? I think it's time for a music break. This probably fits. Hi all, and welcome back to the final portion of tonight's show. There was a lot in that last hour, a lot in every middle hour of this show. But the gist of it is that was a detailed guide of how you, as an individual, escapes the illusion. You can choose to come back in and help others, as a few have done. But that type of information is something they don't want you to know. It's up to you to all absorb it. This is why we have the world of distraction, the lure of money and wealth and fame and all the other stuff. It's all the illusion. And you break through those 3 boxes, and then you get to the membrane and you have the choice. And that can be done in this body. This is where religion fails the people. They're giving their attention, energy, your source, soul, essence away. And they'll consume all day. And then they get us to consume, using one of the biggest distractions of life, consumerism. It then leads into divide and conquer of the haves and have-nots. And the angst of people who haven't got it, or once had it and lost it all, because of their repeated boom and bust cycles. But we keep playing their game. That detailed description is in your own hands. You do the work, you get the benefits. It's not how it works in the illusion here, is it? You go to work and others get the benefit, largely. America was known as the American dream, where entrepreneurs can come from lower backgrounds and make it big. It's not the case anymore, is it? It's all been swallowed by giant corporations. Entrepreneurship is largely rendered obsolete because when the big boys come calling for your app or whatever else you've created, and heaven forbid you create anything to do with zero energy or free energy, they just eliminate you. Of course, we had the plane incident with the Rothschilds taking over patents for certain chips. Those chips might have been used for better reasons, and not necessarily under people's skin either. And this is what's taken place. But that guide is something everyone who listens to this show can do, regardless of what they're doing. The last thing they want is people going into themselves for answers and solutions and raising their consciousness. Those who operate in the golden light stream have a radiance of 33 miles. That means it affects everyone around them. Unlike the Matrix movie, where we had one Neo who broke through, because he eventually believed. The one thing Neo lacked is belief in himself. You gain belief in yourself of all possibilities, and breaking through boxes becomes a lot easier than people think. So it doesn't matter whether you are old, disabled, black, white, yellow, or which country you come from. That path laid out in the last hour applies to all. And there's nothing they can do about it. As each one breaks through the membrane, it shatters their illusion system. Those that come back in with the full spectrum have a large influence on a large geographic area. So it's not one Neo we want, it's millions. Imagine 1,000 people following that path laid out, and all have a radiance of higher consciousness of 33 miles. Those people get together, that resonance goes out, say 10 people, that resonance goes out 3,300 miles, which basically would cover the whole of the United States. And it's not in the Bushes, or the Clintons, or the McCains, or the Rothschilds, or anybody else can do to stop it. You have to do your inner work. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But while you're carrying that baggage, you'll go through your membrane and carry it forward into your next life. Do you really want to carry that baggage around for another lifetime, where you have to work it out? It's not a good... It's not what Source is about, is it? It's a cleansing. But that doesn't mean you're going to get to there, not do anything, because you won't reach the required consciousness level or the required vibratory rate carrying baggage around with you. It's not possible. It's not how it works. You clear your shadow sides and do your inner work, and you've got a clean vessel where the light shines right through it, not halfway through it, because you're overloaded with negative energy all the way through. So Source is not going to wipe away all your ills. You'll carry it forward, as there are lessons on a soul level that you have to complete. So turning around and saying there's no hope is not the way forward. That's applying box 1 again. Limitation. Little me, I can't do anything. You can do everything you've just forgotten. Now, some of the problems here, and this is another stage that I need people to be conscious of and work on. There's a lot of memory wipes going on. I'm seeing it in our own group, where people are posting articles they've forgotten about. The 4-year loop. That's the memory wipes. Of course, we struggle with it here more in the United States because of the programming. The attention span of the average American is 8 minutes, which is why the adverts come in every 8 minutes. But if you're consciously aware of it, that they're doing memory wipes, and the memory wipes are for one reason, is stopping your expansion of knowledge and the retention of it. Now, an expansion of knowledge fills in the void created by the mechanism. They've created a void of illusion and distraction. knowledge and the retention of knowledge empties their void and fills in your own. So by increasing your memory, which you can do during meditation and you can do in your night work, by increasing your memory to both collect the knowledge and, more importantly, retain it, will automatically collapse their mechanism of control. It can't sustain the levels of consciousness that would create by 10% of the world doing it. All of it goes away. Be aware of where your memory wipes are. Go to bed. I want to remember. I want to retain. Do the same in your meditations. I'm ready for the next stage of knowledge. Open the door. You will see a door. It's your choice whether you walk through it or not. It can be presented to you. But if you see the doors, you're ready for your next level of personal evolution. When you go through that door, whatever your personal development level is, you will receive the knowledge required for that level. So you don't go having to ask questions to me. You'll receive it yourself. That is the path we all need to take. Don't allow them, the memory wipes. The fact that you don't know about it means you're consenting. Don't consent. Now, if you think you haven't had enough, here's two other things that's going to get your head spinning, like we do here. And this is a theory. I'll leave it at that for now. And it's something that I've been considering over a period of time. And then something comes forward and you go, I'll pull that knowledge that I retained back into the current day. That's why you need to stop the memory wipes. Because if you can't remember stuff that went on 4 years ago and see it looping now, then you've been memory wiped. So, aspects of the moon, as we all know, doesn't make sense. The fact that it's self-illuminating is one aspect that doesn't make sense. How can you have a full moon when the moon's on the other side, the sun's on the other side of the planet? You see it during the daylight, where one half of the moon is lit and the sun's out. But if it goes to the night, what's illuminating it? Now you could argue, well, the sun's at the bottom of the earth and it's shining up. That's fine. But if it did that, you would see a half moon coming from the bottom up it certainly couldn't possibly illuminate the top half of the moon as we view it. So a full moon in a night sky really doesn't make sense unless the sun is opposite it, which it's not. Otherwise we wouldn't be in the night sky. So the fact that the moon is apparently self-illuminating raises some questions. Now, most systems have 2 or more suns in their solar system, and yet we've only got 1, or so it appears. But what if that moon now, I'll go back a bit. They say a failed sun becomes a brown dwarf. And of course we've all heard the stories of certain brown dwarfs, Nibiru, and all that nonsense. But this moon is self-illuminating. We've only got 1 sun. Where's the other one? What if the moon was the second sun that's burnt out? Now, scientists or astronomers will show you pictures from telescopes where there's 2 suns have got too close to each other, and the parent or larger sun feeds off the other one. So all the heavy elements are going out of it, but it'll still retain something. Now that ball still has elements in it. Once it cools down, those elements can be mined. Of course, certain races are far more advanced than we are. I've been doing mining, including this planet, over many thousands, if not millions of years. So that would explain then why the moon's been hollowed out. Some of it had been hollowed out by the lost matter to the parent star, but the remnants of minerals and energy will still remain. So what if an advanced civilization with mining capabilities then took over the dormant second sun and converted it into a control space station? Of course, beings with that type of advanced knowledge and tech can also use masking technology to make the moon appear as is, when it looks vastly different. And it should be. And how can you do that? By using the firmament layer to project an image and reverse it back. Remember me telling you about the mirror tech? This is why certain people have videos where the moon is rippling like a hologram. But it could actually be the second sun. A failed one. And hence the brown dwarf stroke Nibiru. Nor would they like to tell you things of the future, when in reality they are the past. That could well be another example. Now, at the end of the series, to add another layer to this, the end of the series, the event, the original one, for people who watched it the first time, right at the end, there was a fiery sunlight ball that was in the earth sky. for those of you who can remember then, not being memory wiped. Could that have not resembled a dying sun? Now, if you watch that series again now, they've changed the ending. And the fiery ball's no longer there, but an object with a more brown, with small amounts of fire. The question is, why did they change the ending? Maybe the truth's been brought forward to the future. That was the past. This is the now. Like I said, it's only a theory. Something to ponder on. Last bit before the questions. I told you we might not get time for questions tonight. There's been lots of talk about dark magic, and how we all need to balance it using white magic. Now, most people would think, because we are good and of the light, we can use white magic in the same way as they use the dark magic to counteract. But you think that really makes sense? Me either. The reality is, like what I described earlier in the second hour, dark magic is external magic. It's the illusion again, which is sent to upset the balance of others, whoever their target may be. If we use so-called white magic for the same purposes as they have, then it's not white magic, is it? It's black magic. Maybe white magic is not meant for external use, but internal use. Something to ponder on. Right, I think I've given you enough to ponder on this week. You're probably all stuffed up with beers and eggnogs and turkey, and I'm giving you a bit of a mind bending with all these theories and truths and a chance to escape. Right, let's pick a few questions out. I don't know whether I've answered this before. It's been left for a while. I'm going to answer it again in case I have. Maybe I've had a memory wipe as well. If the Earth tilts back upright, what do you foresee regarding Antarctica? Would it be revealing over there? Some portions will be revealing, yes. Maybe it's already revealed, because we're not going to see live pictures. We're not going to see crystal cities burnt out. But that's what's down there. Ancient civilization that had a crystal city. Except it's all charred. As for any beings down there, I'm not too sure anymore. You would see more evidence of what the Nazis were up to. Like the vast metropolis yet to be discovered in the Sahara, which proves beyond all doubt that we've had visitors in the ancient past. Antarctica will reveal, if the public are given access to viewing. But I've seen the Crystal City, and it's all burnt out. And then there's mistrial. What's up with that? Maybe Trump is, like you said, all along. I meant to check up on that. I didn't, so apologies for that. Yes, there'll be certain events that we won't like and certain ones we will. That's going to be the roller coaster ride that we're all on at the moment. And certain people still able to jump justice, and then certain ones aren't. And all that will be revealed over the coming months, and maybe even weeks. In the Kingdom of Mana show, it is mentioned that there are over 500 aspects to the control system that has been used on this planet. Is this information available for viewing and or downloading? No, it's not available for viewing or downloading. But basically, when people are saying, well, you should just do this and it's all over, get rid of Obama and get rid of the Bushes and it's all over. But it's not. And there's 500 aspects, around 500 aspects of the control system that needs to be changed over time. Now, the projected date of completing them all to a new way of being, a new way of acting, and transparency and fair and a balanced system between the people and the planet is projected to be 40 years. But there's around 500 aspects that have to be completely changed. To give you an example, education. Can't carry on teaching that crap to kids. There's a whole new history waiting to be rewritten of the real history and not the BS we've been taught for the last 100 years. There's the financial aspect. There is the new technology aspect. There is the military aspect. The governments. America's not had a government since 1871. An American government, not US Inc. That's not a government. So there's so many different aspects that have to be changed. How we build things, how we transport things, how we provide better, more nutritious food, how we provide health to all the people. That's the type of aspects I'm talking about. And there's 500 different portions of it that all have to be addressed in a certain manner. Some have to be phased in and some have to be phased out. You can't just light switch and go, well, we're getting energy machines next week. Well, what happens to all the jobs? So this takes time. And eventually, if we can get the funds, it will escalate it a lot quicker, providing the people who are delivering those funds or responsible with those funds not play the same game, because it makes more profit. So we have to improve all aspects of life that makes it fair. The taxes, for example, that has to be rewritten completely, because it's not fair. You've got the average person paying all the taxes off crap wages, and corporations making 18 billion and not paying a penny. That has to stop. The waste of military, the waste of spying agencies and all these other three-letter agencies, waste of money. In a fair and balanced system where all prosper There's no need for DHS, NSA, CIA or FBI. All the hidden corporations that hide behind them. So there's some of the 500 aspects. The ecosystem has to be fixed, the oceans have to be fixed, the air has to be cleaned up, the water has to be cleaned up, we have to provide water to people who don't have clean water. All that takes time. It's an enormous project where basically everything has to change because the way we've been living or being told we have to live is wrong. Rewarding people for killing people. Ridiculous. So, education and health and a revamping of cities and towns, ending poverty, ending all the criminal element groups, putting them to work in more people-based systems rather than raping the people and poisoning the people with ridiculous drugs and all that nonsense. They have to be educated away from the previous system. You know, you've got drug runners. They're making a lot of money. Well, if you tell them they're going to work in a job in a hospital teaching kids how to not do drugs, and they're going to earn 1% of what they were earning selling it, there's not many going to accept it. So you have to educate. Education is going to be the biggest thing. And health. Because the health of the people right around this planet is appalling. Even in the so-called first world countries. So that's some of your 500 aspects. Doesn't sound as simple as people thought. There's a lot to it. An awful lot to it. And that's why it will take 40 years. It's not going to mean that we all have to wait 40 years before people start going, oh my God, I'll be dead then, and I won't see it. No, you will. But the full spectrum of the program will take 40 years. There's a lot to change. Do you know who Lyara is? Yes, I tried to contact her last year. She has some interesting information that overlays some of the stuff that I know and some of the stuff I've relayed on the show. I don't know much about her. Kind of worries me the show or person she went on the show with. Who receives emails from the Prime Creator. Dear me. Yes, and I managed to obtain that email address, by the way. It's called primecreator@langley.gov. Ridiculous. Anyway, her information, particularly the psychological stuff, I thought was spot on, and some of the night stuff also kind of fitted in. Maybe we'll try and contact her again. Can you tell me where to find the Levashoff show? I can't seem to locate it on the website. Does it go by another title? Yeah, that's probably my fault saying the Levashoff show. It's the Humanity Unplugged 1 and 2. That's on the Think Different thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. Memory serves me correctly. It's also on the Spreaker site, and I think it's on YouTube as well. So there's 3 choices there. Humanity Unplugged 1 and 2 is the Leathershop stuff, with a little bit of my own knowledge thrown in. So I do not understand what you meant about Smith being the one in addition to Neo. Well, in essence, Smith and Neo are one and the same being. We're all Smith and we're all Neo. It comes down to choice. Do you do something that's service to others or service to self? So everyone has the capability of being Neo. Everyone's also got the same capability, no matter how good you think you are, of being Smith. Selfish, self-centered, aggressive, violent. All the shadow aspects of the Neo. This is why you have to do your inner work. It clears out any chance of the negative vibrations, which leads people into becoming Smith and leaving you on your own path of choice. Some people like being Smith, like the Bushes, like Clinton, McCain's and Cheney's and Rumsfeld of this world. They like being Smith. The next life they might be Neo. But we hate that aspect of them. We all hate the Bushes. But in essence, it's hating the wrong side of us. Or what we fear we could become unless we stayed on our own path of being the Neo, being in the light. It's a fear, hating other people, that we could become them. I'm of the light and all this. But if circumstances surround you, where suddenly you end up with no job and no home and you turn to crime, you're on the path to becoming Smith. Just by a change of environment and a change in your lifestyle. People will do anything to feed themselves or look after themselves, including theft. When people become desperate, they resort to anything. Some people resort to killing people. So that person, when everything was going well, can operate as Neo, but suddenly things changed and became Smith. And that's the constant battle between light and dark we all go through. So in essence, they're the same being. The illusion is thinking they're separate, as they're not. It's all about choice. I don't understand the ending of the third movie. Could you explain? I can't remember the end of the third movie now. Maybe I'll replay some of it and report back next week. What is the current status of the Sith Lords? Depends which ones. If it's the House of Lords, and that's who you're referring to, they're playing games with the agency groups to try and add Rothschilds back in. If you're talking the other unholy four Sith Lords, they're currently shitting their pants, because they know we're coming. Do you know the cause of the recent loud booms heard in the US and Britain? I'll refer to the last comment. It's probably the cabal shit in their pants. They've just maybe they got a few hammers over their left eye. Think about that. Right, I think that's about enough. Yeah, there's a couple of more questions. We'll put them on to next week. So I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. There's a lot of stuff in there again. That kind of lifts you out of the turkey gloom and eggnog and whatever else you've consumed today. I hope our members are not lining up for Black Friday. I would think we would have a higher consciousness than falling for that illusion. But you never know. Right, which song are we going to end with? Given it's largely been about us and how we break free. If you do anything between now and the end of the year, is grasp what I said in the second hour. There's no waiting for anybody then to do anything. You're in charge of your own destiny. It won't happen overnight. Don't expect it to all happen overnight, because it won't. But you set the path in motion. Once you stick to that path, you'll see the illusion. You will see the bullshitters. You will receive the information you need for your level of understanding. It comes to you rather than you going to it. So you don't have to spend all day listening to various YouTubes and all kinds of other stuff. That's part of the illusion. You want answers? It'll come to you. That's what happens when you reach the higher levels of consciousness. It's your choice. Right. Happy Thanksgiving for the rest of it. I'll be back on Saturday evening this time. Not Sunday. Not Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with an evening with Thomas with Zoo Xander, coming live from Australia, of all places. So we're certainly travelling afar, and the message is spreading out far wider than people realise. And not just to do with this show. The movement of people and the raising of consciousness is a global event. It's not just in America and some parts of Europe. It's global. They know we're coming. And they also know they can't do nothing about it. They'll throw illusions your way and threaten you with bio-warfare, which they did this week. We'll threaten them with far worse. Higher consciousness. They can't handle it. They can't handle that vibratory frequency. It's up to us to increase it. Right, this has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Bye for now.